Welcome to the final episode in this mini-series about Flamingo Land history. You've seen the rest of them, now we're going to cover 2010 right the way up to present day. Let's get into this. Right, we start with 2010, and it's a bit of a quiet one. Now, if you remember correctly, at the end of the last episode, Mumbo Jumbo had just been installed, and also Kamali had just had a little incident with a power cut caused by a storm. Well, 2010, it was Mumbo Jumbo's turn. And in this case, it got stuck upside down for 20 minutes. So, can you imagine the head rush on that? Right, moving on to 2011, we actually had quite a few things added in 2011. The first one was Zoom. This is kind of an interesting little kids ride. Now, still there to this day. It's the suspended planes ride that kind of goes around. Listen, it's great that they've got these kids rides. It's a bit rough. I was on it not that long ago getting a POV, and you do get absolutely battered into those corners. But anyway, that was added in 2011. Right, the next thing that came in 2011 is a weird one because I've never used this and I don't think it's overly popular. Now, I could be wrong. I've never been there in the peak summer season, so maybe in the summer it is. But they got their laser combat thing, so basically outdoor laser tag. I mean, you know where it is. It sort of sits between Mumbo Jumbo and the Splash Battle. And it's an upcharge, so it's not included. So I think that, I don't know if it would be any more, like if there'd be a higher uptake if it was free and included in the price, but yeah, listen, they got it. It's great to have options, I suppose. As I say, I've never seen it busy, and I do wonder if any of you have used it and what you think of it, because yeah, I haven't. Right, speaking of things I've not used, there's a soft play. And much though I would love places to have soft plays for adults, like, I've said this before, not in videos, but you know, you imagine if a soft play after 7 o'clock, you know, they just let the adults in. How much fun would that be? Anyway, they got soft play and it was HMS Bouncy, which, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of over towards where Flamingo 1 is. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's where it's located. Right, unfortunately, we also had a fire this year, and it was in one of their food outlets, and judging by these photos that I've found, it was completely gutted. So yeah, that must have been a big blow to the park. On a positive note, they did receive a gold award for their work towards conservation, so that is a plus for the park. And of course, as always, I found yet another advert for you.
I love this resort. So much to do.
More time to relax.
We can see the animals again.
Can't wait to get back and ride. I'm looking forward to tonight's show. More for tomorrow.
Why not stay and play? Flamingo Land Resort, Yorkshire. Wild animals, wilder rides.
Right, moving on to 2012, this is a bit of a quieter year. The park got Pterodactyl. Now, that is basically their Starflyer ride. It's pretty good in terms of the views up there. I mean, you know, it's great because you can see the zoo, you can see the park, etc. Fantastic. Bit mental if it's windy. This one seems to have had the flip-flop treatment because I've seen pictures of it with way more chairs on it than it has now. So at some point they've butchered this and removed some of the capacity. Now, as I said with flip-flop in the previous episode, I don't know if that is the motor was struggling, so to take the load off they've just reduced it. Again, possibly because it's so open and there's quite a lot of wind, maybe the motor was struggling on this. I don't know. It's a tricky one because obviously they've reduced capacity, which just means longer queues. So I'm assuming there is a good reason for it. But anyway, that was added in 2012. Found a rather random one here in the papers, and that is that the owner, Gordon Gibb, was accused of assaulting a ticket tout outside who was selling 2-for-1 tickets. Now, don't know if he did or not, but the case was later dropped. Right, 2013. This was a pretty bad year for the park because unfortunately they installed Hero. Now, I've said this before, I do not understand why this model exists. It kind of looks like an early flying coaster, right? Probably said this in videos before. The first flying coaster that I'm aware of was Skytrack at Granada Studios in Manchester way back in the 90s, and I'm that old, I did go on it. And it was the same sort of thing. It was a single person sort of contraption. And that's what this looks like. It looks like it's an early version of the flying coaster. To realise that this came after Galactica, just why? I mean, and the fact that Zamperla still sell these, or at least I believe they do. I've seen some other parks have been removing their Valari models, which is what this is. But yeah, unfortunately, Flamingo Land put one in. And as I've said before, Digital Dan did a whole day on this thing, and I have no idea how he managed it. But anyway, it was opened, I think, was it Lamar that was there on opening day? And yeah, he didn't seem too sure about going on it himself.
I'm not so sure about going on Hero. I might go on it. If enough kids go on it today, then I might end up, you know, I can't let the kids go on and I look like a scared adult. So we shall see.
You can now escape the bounds of Earth and join the heroes, those few who can fly. Hero, the new extreme ride at Flamingo Land Resort, Yorkshire. Experience the sensation of zero-gravity flight. Hero is proof that man can fly. New at Flamingo Land Resort, Yorkshire. Hero, no cape required.
They also added 2 more attractions, so obviously we just had Pterodactyl installed. They sort of built out that area a little bit more because we got Twistosaurus, which is their little coaster that the cars rotate slowly. It's not exactly a major spinning coaster. I think it's a 2-lap special. And then they also got Cyclosaurus, I think it's called. Basically the one where you pedal to go up and down. So yeah, they'd started to build out that dino area.
There's something big at Flamingo Land Resort. It's big. Big fun for all the family at the fantastic Dynastone Park. With fun rides like the Twistosaurus or the prehistoric pedal-powered Cyclosaur. Keep an eye out for our life-size friends. And for big kids, we've the terrifying Pterodactyl. Dynastone Park. You'll be glad you saw us at Flamingo Land Resort, Yorkshire.
Right, moving on to 2015, there's not really much this year except I found an article where that lovely coaster we've just talked about, Hero, had a bit of an incident because one of the foot supports or footrests came off it whilst it was in flight, as it were, and struck a guest in the queue. And moving on to 2016, we have a new entertainment offering, and it's one that is still there to this day. And that is the Pirates of Zanzibar, which is just at the entrance to the park. You've got that pirate ship. It's quite a good show, actually. I've seen it a few times and I do enjoy it. What I didn't realise was that it was opened by Katie Price. And I've got an advert here where it talks all about it. This was also the year that we first started to hear rumblings about Flamingo Land doing something up here in Scotland. Now we'll cover that later on, and unfortunately it wasn't going to be a theme park because, well, I'd like one up here. Yeah, we'll cover it later on. 2017, we got another new attraction. Now this on paper looks like a really good attraction. In practice, I think it kind of falls a little bit short. And that is Flamingo 1. Now, it is basically a modern take on something like the Grand Prix that we had at Blackpool until last year. And so basically, it's the kind of electrically powered cars that you drive around a track. And the reason I say this is kind of a modern take on it, it looks quite nice and fresh. It's 3 lanes, so there's that kind of, in theory, there's a better capacity to sort of go through. In practice, though, the capacity is not great. First of all, it doesn't always seem to run all 3 tracks, but even when it does, my God, it is slow. Like, I mean, I know, look, you're not expecting these things to do like 50 miles an hour or anything, but you know, getting in double digits would be kind of handy because that thing is painful. There's clips of me on that where I could probably get out and walk faster. At 2019, I just kind of getting a bit quiet at this point, but I did find reference to them using the site for auditions for Britain's Got Talent. Although if you read the small print, it does say that the judges may not be present. So I guess this was kind of like a preliminary round. No Simon Cowell. So you're moving on to 2020, and obviously that is a year that did not really go to plan for anybody, right? Not just Flamingo Land, it was just across the board, right? Every park, even personally, we all were impacted by it. They obviously expected to release their brand new coaster in 2020, and as we know, that got pushed back a little bit, so we will cover that shortly. Unfortunately, they also had an incident where one of their workers had an incident where their leg got trapped in one of the rides, and they had to be escorted by helicopter to hospital. 2021, things are slowly kind of opening up a little bit, I guess. Still not back to normality at this point. I did find a clip here of Shane Ritchie, who was staying on site, so there's some of him going around the park. I think there's some stuff with animals and caravans and stuff, but anyway, I'll put in some clips of him.
1, 2, 3, go. They can actually reach speeds up to 30 miles per hour, so pretty quick.
This was also the first time I could find reference to their Party in the Park. Quite a few of these parks, when I've done the history series, they seem to have these concerts, and this was the first one I could find at Flamingo Land, and it featured Peter Andre, Jojo, and a few others. I did find that there was an incident on the Lost River ride, and I do wonder if in part this explains the decision to do some work to it later on in a couple of years' time. But basically there was a family in the boat. It was going up the lift hill and then it stopped, and then they heard this snapping noise and it went backwards down the hill. So I'm assuming that the chain dog thing that kind of holds onto it let go and it fell backwards, and of course you're pinned in with the safety bar. So it says they were underwater for a bit. I don't know if that's just it kind of hit the water with force and then kind of a lot of water went in the boat. Fortunately, they were okay, but definitely shaken up. Right, so we're on to 2022, and that coaster that I mentioned before, it finally opened its doors, but I'm not going to talk about this one because my good friend Joe is going to do the honours.
For those of you that might have wondered why Flamingo Land is so kind of special to me, is the reason that Theme Park Insanity first originally started. Now you'll know, if you followed me from the earlier days, I used to cover the construction of Sick, which of course is their latest roller coaster. And I did so through photographic kind of updates and stuff, very much like Chris is doing at the moment with Blackpool, obviously all the way through till the ride opened. Now, of course, we had the whole situation, I'm not going to name it because YouTube's a bit funny about it, but of course that delayed it by quite a few years. Regardless of that though, if it wasn't for Sick actually being added to the park and the construction of that ride, Theme Park Insanity just simply wouldn't exist.
One thing that Joe didn't mention there is that now you probably wonder, or maybe you don't, because you probably know Flamingo Land quite well. Some of you might wonder why this turned up in yellow and red and then got painted once it was constructed. That's because this ride was intended for another park. It never got built at that other park. As far as I'm aware, it got delivered to the park, never got constructed. Flamingo Land purchased it, built it, and gave it a paint job. So there's a little fact for you. Some of you have probably seen this already, but one of the things that kind of was doing the rounds on socials at this time was when it first began to test, because for some reason they didn't strap the test dummies in very well. That kind of final corkscrewy bit, yeah, they fell out.
What a dummy! Whoa, more water dummies!
And I did find a rather humorous meme, because as some of you probably know, this is kind of basically the same attraction as Colossus down in Thorpe Park. Kind of similar. I mean, it's about 95% the same. The lift hill and first drop is different, and obviously it has far, far better trains. But the rest of the layout is basically the same. So I did find a meme where somebody called this Flamingosus. Bit of a quiet one in 2023, just a couple of things to note here. I did spot yet another concert, this time it featured Blue. And I also found a rather impressive drone show for, I think it was their Halloween event. And as far as I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe this was the first drone show in the UK. It did look rather impressive. And then as always, I found another advert for you.
Escape to a land where it's no work and all play. There's no such thing as speed limits. Where wild animals roam. And around every corner is a new adventure. Where you live amongst nature and giant rabbits come and say hello. Escape to Flamingo Land. Book your day pass online at flamingoland.co.uk.
Right, so that brings us pretty much up to present day. We've just got 2024. Now, as Joe's mentioned previously, the Lost River has been getting some TLC. Kind of just closed and they've just ripped it apart. It wasn't clear at first whether it was getting removed. We obviously now know that they are doing some significant upgrades to it. As Joe mentioned in that previous episode, they've lowered the drop. There's this new SimWorks technology going in there, so there'll be some sort of screen and motion-based thing going on, which is kind of cool to see. We're assuming it's opening this year. I don't think we've had confirmation on an opening date yet. I am down there, well, at the time of recording, I will be down there next week. By the time you watch this, I'll be in the park because this goes out next week. It won't be open, right, for the start of the season, we know that much. But I don't know when it's going to open. Is it going to be a spring? Is it going to be a summer opening? But that'll be exciting to see. I mentioned earlier that they had a plan to bring some sort of venue to Scotland. Now, it wasn't a theme park. I think it was a water park, sort of leisure complex accommodation type thing. Now, it does appear that this has been kind of shut down. There's been a lot of kind of political stuff going on here. The Greens are, like Scottish Greens, are totally against it. And it has, at the moment, been denied. Although, I think I read something that said that Flamingo Land are planning to challenge it. So maybe we haven't seen the end of this, but certainly for now, it's not happening. And, you know, my personal opinion on this one, where they were planning on doing it, Loch Lomond, I mean, you don't want to change that, right? That is just a beautiful spot. However, if they were bringing a theme park to Scotland, like there's plenty green fields up here that you could pick. So, yeah, they change the location and make it a park and not like a leisure thing, I'd be for it. I am curious what the park has in store beyond that, though. As I said, if you've seen the rest of the episodes, they're not a park that is afraid to splash some cash, which is always nice to see. Obviously, there's a lot of concerns in the industry right now. We've seen the departure of Oakwood, Flambards, etc. Blackpool have just announced their big investment for next year. I know a lot of people have been worried about that park, and they're spending $9 million on this new gyro swing. I'm curious to see what the next investment will be for Flamingo Land. Obviously, we talked about before, they had that potential wooden coaster that didn't happen. I think that'd be kind of cool. And to be honest with you, they're kind of a bit of a wild card. They get forgotten about by a lot of people, right? There's so many people who just forget Flamingo Land is even a thing. And I get it, for a lot of people, it's kind of far away. There's a lot of people down south, and it's kind of up north. Not for me, obviously, but for a lot of people, it's up north, and I understand that. I wouldn't put it past them to be one of the first people to bring us an RMC, because it's the kind of thing they would do. They just like to do crazy things. So I'd love to know your thoughts on the park, you know, what it is that you've enjoyed the most, what you think the future holds for them. And if you have enjoyed this one, hit that like button and please do subscribe. I have been Chris, and you've also been watching Joe, and I shall see you in the next one. Adios!